I cannot do what Madonna did. Madonna was in a different era than me. I can't do what Oprah did. She's in a different time than me. Billie Holiday, same thing. Doing things the way it's already been done is not going to work.
So Katie, how do you stay connected with so many people? Because I think you are one of the people that I know that has the most friends, the most enthusiastic friends, and the most like you're the queen of networking. How do you do that?
Really? Wow, thank
Yes.
you. Thank you for the compliment and the beautiful testimonial. I mean, that makes me feel so great because in this world, a lot of times, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel alone a lot, you know? So it's nice, you know, from your perspective of you say that because I work and I yearn very hard to nourish those relationships because it means so much to me because I know what it's like to feel alone and not be thought of. So I make sure I put that love and attention into others because it's what I want reciprocated. And I guess I'm just putting it out there so much. And now it's, you know, it's also a practice to learn to make sure that what we're doing without, we do within as well, not only for others, but we can do it for ourselves too. So it's a balance, but I just kind of don't think about it. Sometimes I'll just do it, right? That's always been my model, just to go and do it. So it just makes me feel good and it lights other people up. So it's kind of like the intention of why, like the purpose of why.
Yeah, 100%. And you're very quick to do it, which is something that hanging out with you and going to the San Diego NFT conference and seeing you in action with people, because we met through another podcast. We did another podcast interview. That's how we met. Then we talked about maybe having you work for the studio, and then we started the conversation with that. And then we stayed connected, and you got me to go to San Diego NFT, and then seeing you there, you were talking to so many people, but it wasn't like the, you know, surface level, oh yeah, hi, how are you, da, da, da. This is what I do, oh, what do you do? No, you were honestly thinking of this person that you were meeting, and I saw that repeatedly. What do they want to do? How can I help them? And you would immediately send a text and introduce this person to this person, or like send their contact information to this other person and make sure they got connected and they were getting ahead and getting what they needed. So I seeing that and then looking at the follow through that you have with people, I think that's something very interesting that not many actors and actresses do. I think you're one of the only people that I know who are like actors who are also very actively networking with a bunch of other people. So what are you working on right now, and how are you using all of those connections with all the different people that you know to make what you're doing?
Yeah, well, first and foremost, that just like really melts my heart. Thank you. It's kind of like when we just started here, we just jumped right in. It's what I do too. I just jump right in. It's like, hey, like, if it's like being Armidas, the goddess of the hunt, right? I'm a huntress and I just go for it. But circling with some of the things you just said from NFT San Diego, we met queer friends. They had a booth there, they were there, and how, you know, it's implemented now into where we are. I'm a part of an event, a summit that's happening in Denver, and I reached out to the creator and I said, hey, do you want to display your NFTs, to show your NFTs? And they actually informed me, oh, we don't have any NFTs to sell. I'm like, it's cool. How about you just do your brand, a photo of your brand with the QR code so people can go to the collection and know your website of who you are and what you're about. And they're like, oh, thank you so much. That's awesome. And so I like sowing those kind of seeds, and I think about people, and my mind just like visualizes like how I can put this and this together. And I love seeing the magic of it all coming together. When I was at NFT San Diego, I met two gentlemen from Berlin, and they have a really cool project. And I have a couple friends who have Intent Art and you know, GWA and Blue Moon, and I'm like, oh, you have to, they're in Berlin. And so I arranged for them to meet, and now they follow each other, but for them to connect in Berlin, I'm like, oh, have a drink, send a photo, you know, send it to me. So I just like connecting people with people. It makes me feel really good, you know. And I like when people connect me with people. You connected me with Peter Hurley, and immediately right after I was flying to New York and I landed, I went right to his studio that day. He's like, yeah, I'm on, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, oh, cool. I walked right over.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I'm going right there. It's like, and I really realize that when the opportunity is there, if you feel it and we take action, it's great. But sometimes I reflect and things that I didn't take action on, it's kind of like you missed the boat, like there's something happening soon this week and I'm invited and I want to go and I have these visions of like how it could be. And it's like magnetically, I think it would be important for me to be at these two places that this person in particular invited me to. One, I'm supporting her as a woman, empowering her, and she's a motivational speaker, very empowering. I want to be there to support that, and for the visions that we have and the connections, the new connections we have, I want to be there to support her on that day and grow through that journey. But what if I make the choice and I don't go there? I'm sure it's fine. I'm sure we can still connect and things could happen. Nature takes its course. But I really want to be there for that. But what if I'm not there and I don't go? It could be something else. I'm not sure. So it's like, it's that fine balance and that art of energy of making sure to take care of self. How much are we putting out? Are we putting it out there for the ego? Am I putting it out there for the FOMO? Am I putting it out? Like, what reasons am I putting it out? So, I'll have to think about what I'm doing, instead of just like darting and going all the time. I'm like, oh wait, okay, that's great, and I did that, and that's what I know to do, that's what I'm used to do, but do I still want to do that with my energy, or have other critical thinking and communicative conversations with people in such a way where it's not quality over quantity? I guess you could look at that in a short form, because I think the other areas are quality as well, of sowing seeds in a beautiful garden, right, for the unknown and for the unexpected. So
yeah. And you never know, like what you're saying, you never know what can come out of whatever experience or project or little thing that you're doing. But I wanted to ask you about the whole NFT space, and I feel there people are way more open to actually connecting and collaborating and actually doing something. How has it been your experience so far there, and how are you taking that into film with your background as an actress and also as a producer and all that?
Well, I released the very first headshot on the blockchain, actually, and it's because of you and through Peter Hurley. So it's the first actor headshot on the blockchain, and how epic, he's the best headshot photographer in the world, and I'm the very first actor headshot on the blockchain. And so I started a collection, and I'm going to release some other of those headshots, 18 total from that specific shoot, and the photographer will, receive half of that for the collaboration that we did together. And so I onboarded him by way of action into Web3 and NFTs, and he got a wallet and he followed instructions and he did it, and it was amazing and seamless. And now because of the smart contract, I don't have to think or keep up with those things. It'll automatically go to his wallet. In addition, he's from the Philippines, a specific photographer, and I have been sponsoring a family in the Philippines, for a long time. And so we can gift a community wallet or some percentage to the family I sponsor in the Philippines, or something that goes initially with, the likeliness of his nature and mine that we agree on. Another collaborative project I did with Robert Sturman, he's an international artist. I released the very first love poem on the blockchain that's coupled with a Polaroid, which is super rare, because in the beginning of 2021, people are like, okay, NFT, it has to be very rare. Like, how is it rare, to put it on the blockchain? So it was a love first poem on the blockchain coupled with a Polaroid that he took of me, which made it super rare, and it was the very first poem from the poetry book I released on Web 2 on World Poetry Day, March 21st. And so percentages of that collection, because he's really into animals, we donated to 2 of the ones he had in mind. So I like to be very thoughtful of that when collaborating with people, like how do we align our intentions and goals, if it's for mental health or creating in the terms of acting and entertainment for that umbrella. Agents in Hollywood have called me up, and I do Zooms and acting classes and giving people the psychology of NFTs and explaining it short-term, medium-term, long-term, and building out that kind of community. And Chris Wood, who's a friend of mine, he does spoken word, He's also an actor, and he's in Web3. So we're talking about collaborating and do things for specifically Hollywood actors. And so we'll do that. Also, I curate with Rad NFT TV. And so it's off the blockchain, but it's tokenized through the blockchain. So Mila Kunis released Stoner Cats. She's the first animation web series on series on the blockchain. And I released the first comedy web series on the blockchain, a web series. And it's actors, improv, and they're also voiceover actors. It's real human actors. And so it's through Rad, and they have, about 4 or 5 other projects right now as well, but they're all animation. And so it can be like token gated. I don't really like that term gated, because it's about decentralizing and not and opening, the gateway of Hollywood for the new entrepreneurs coming on board to create. But there is an NFT, and it's the poster of series 1, so everyone can stream the content. Everyone. You don't have to buy a ticket to go to the movie. You don't have to buy a ticket to go here specifically for my project. But hey, if you're looking at what's going on, which actors, and then you look up the lineup and you're like, oh, I like this actor, this actor. I think I'm envisioning for the near future, if someone wants to support and they financially can support, they're like, oh, I want to buy the movie poster, or I want to buy, the headshot, because I want to support this artist and, this director, this producer of what they created. And if they financially can support, people will want to. If you like someone's art, they want to purchase it. They don't want to be forced to pay for something and then they have a comment about it of, I didn't like this movie, I like this movie, and they feel they got the short end of the stick because they actually paid money and they didn't find that value. So changing the value and how we experience and consume content. And so I think that's like a really good start.
Great. So you're doing acting, voice acting, making art, making poetry. I know you also have music because you released your album. You're working with the NFTs. You're curating these conferences. You're all over the place, which is actually the name of your podcast, which is another project that you have been working on for a very long time. You're busy. You're always doing something. So how do you find the energy and the focus to like work on all of these things at the same time? And do you ever have like a favorite and then you go for 3 months, all you do is like NFTs and then you switch to something else? How does your brain work?
I'm full on crypto and NFTs, and there's a pitch for this project that's 8 to 10 weeks out. So it's nice to have, instead of a budget for 3 weeks or 1 month or 6 weeks, I'll be able to have a longer budget, for this event that's coming. So it's nice. I'll be able to focus on that and have the opportunity to paint my life canvas, like curating a VR experience in between DJ sets, curating the women in leadership of Web3. And these women come internationally and they're all very fine with tech and cybersecurity and being artists and creative directors. So I'm really excited. I was able to, curate those experiences. And that's for Future Shape 360 in Denver. And then I curated over 100 artists internationally for them to show their NFTs. And also people can QR code it and pick them up. And then when I was in NFT NYC, they asked me to be a part of Soho Technique. It was an art crawl of it was 12 galleries, and there were over 200 international artists showcasing their work through augmented reality, which was like really cool. And so I feel really blessed that people invite me to be a part of these projects. And then so I can just take people internationally and include them. And while I'm showing my art, I get to simultaneously show other people's art. And I know firsthand as an artist, for me to say, oh, look at my work, I've grown past the place of it being uncomfortable, but it still is. But so if I can honor other people and what they're doing, unconditionally, just putting those good ethers out there, and with my heart and soul, I know what it means for me even if it's not reciprocated, or if someone can't explain, or they're just unconscious of it. I feel there's meaning with it all. And I think it's sowing seeds and having it be long term. I grew up running cross country. So my dad ran cross country, and he turned me on to cross country running. So it's short term, medium term, long term goals. So I'm playing the long game over here. Yeah. But in terms of energy and, focus, I need to have my space, and I rotate. When I paint, sometimes I'm doing 5 paintings at a time, and acrylic dries really quickly. I love using acrylic because it dries quickly. But while that's drying, I'm like manifesting and envisioning something new, and putting artifacts from around the world onto the canvas, and it's 3-dimensional. And so that's craftsmanship. So I think everything's in a rotation. For example, it has to all align. Like season 4, you mentioned She's All Over the Place podcast. The season finale is right now, actually. And so it's a women empowerment series. So when I was in season 3, I announced season 4 was going to be women empowerment. And as my vessel was growing through an experience of knowing my power, allowing myself to lose my power, lose myself, to find myself once again, growing through the experience of not knowing if I was going to be connected to that source again, because I dismantled it and allowed it to leave with trust and faith. But when I was obtaining the security of my, being in my spirit, I was growing through a journey. And while I was growing through it to, explore divine femininity in all genders and what it is to be a woman, I decided to have the Women Empowerment Series. And so I had international women on of all sorts, and a few men speaking on Mother Nature for Earth Month. And, a partner friend of mine who was raised by 2 moms. And so all aspects of exploring, because I felt an analogy of this egg, and I felt like, sometimes it'd feel very fragile and cracks within. And so I felt my self-esteem, like Caroline Myss, who's a mystic intuitive from Chicago. She talks about being on the ground floor level, or being in the penthouse and going up and down, like 1 foot out, 1 foot in. It's a lot. It's like a rocky boat. And so I felt with my security and my insecurity and my confidence and the art of communication and speaking, and how much should I speak, and loud, or how quiet should I be, or what should I share? Did I overshare? And I could see people would walk away, and it's like, oh, I overshared. And it's that art of communication. So I wanted to explore and hear and ask questions as a curious being. So if I'm learning, the person attuning could be learning through me as well. And so that's why I had the Women Empowerment Series. So I wouldn't just, have people have the public persona of what you think about a person within the first 3 seconds from when they see you on the outside. But I wanted to explore the ocean within and get really solid in that. So I'm not feeling like that fragile, and then not having sources to go to, because it was very lonely being there. And so it was a great exploration, right? Not only being human and sharing that for myself, but with others, but for my craft of my actor and voiceovers, listening to how people speak, what they say, what they don't say, their tone, their dialects, and then also the stories. And that, makes someone a great actor, listening. It's not just talking, right? Talking, but if we're not listening and picking up the energetic vibration and the sound, how am I going to truly respond from a core level? So I think it empowered, my actor as well.
Do you ever feel lonely as an artist?
All the time. Yeah, definitely.
Why do you think that is? Because I feel the same thing of maybe thinking so much about cool ideas or this and that, and maybe feeling like no one else is thinking of all the things that you're thinking.
Well, all of that, it could be all of that. In addition, the alone of what we put onto that a word, it could be more than what we even know. So homeostasis and being in the center of the unknown space, the space in between, if we're extremely high what we know, or extremely low of what we know or not yet known, or experience our highest of the highs that we do know of thus far, but the space in between. it's an opportunity for a clearing, for a clean canvas, for a blank canvas. So I feel like our emotions have that space where people can gravitate to. It's uncomfortable, I feel scared, or I feel alone. But if we maybe, create more space, maybe that's just something that's there that we just don't know what it is. And so exploring what that is, and allowing it to be, because our emotions are very powerful. And so it's a way for the emotions to come in. But if we're feeling alone or depressed or having something, maybe we can't allow that to be. And that's okay too, because we associate with our feelings. Maybe a lot of times I associated those feelings with stuff I didn't like in certain circumstances, that's a great question, and it's something to explore. But making sure, since I'm aware, to hack not to always react to that as it could be an uncomfortable thing, start to look at it and actually may be a gift for empathic people and highly sensitive people to utilize it as their gifts, as you said, when we first started, of how I am. Maybe because I go with that feeling and I utilize it in ways of positivity as well, right? Yeah. So maybe our spirit and our soul, it could be, maybe.
So Katie, you work on so many things and so many different projects. How do you deal with failure? And do you ever feel like, I'm not good enough, and I'm gonna put out this album and people are not gonna like it, or how do you deal with all that?
I love failure.
Yeah.
I get hungry from it. Yeah.
I don't like failure.
Well, I wrote a poem years ago. I think it was called Numb. It says, when you get used to it, when you're up, you're up, when you're down, you're down. How low will you go? And it's like, I ran cross country, right? So I have a sports mentality, and what I do as an individual affects the whole. And I went through the races. I used to run 50 miles a week. So I know what defeat is through my physical body, my mind, my spirit, so I feel that way I'm able, in a nutshell, to deal with it in one way. Also, when I was a kid, my motto was just do it. Nike, to win, victorious people, just do it. So I just go. And then I think another thing is, I think because I go and I go, it's important to write a book or write poems and reflect along the way. It's important to reflect, because sometimes maybe a decade will go by and it's like, oh, I never even thought about it. And most people are just on the go. So what if people don't even comprehend it? And so sometimes I think I would go so much just to not feel my feelings. I would just keep myself busy. There's this fashion icon, her name's Iris. There's a documentary on her. And when she said that in her documentary, I'm like, oh, I totally get it. She just keeps herself so busy because she'll get depressed. She'll just feel like she's not worth anything, So there's that fine balance of, I learned the word transition. So to transition into being into California, going to the ocean more, laying by the pool, going swimming, transitioning, making sure that I'm going to the spa and taking care of my body and my mental health, right? Making sure I'm nourished and I'm supported and happy, so I'm not feeling exhausted on empty fumes.
And Katie, how do you deal with imposter syndrome? Do you ever feel that?
It's a great question. I have a story too, so which one would you like?
Story. Give me a story.
First, the story.
Yes.
Okay, then remember the question. The story is, when I was 14, I knew I wanted to be a motivational speaker. I mapped it out in my mind, as I do, put an ad in the paper, very minimal, charge people.
Very minimal. She's 14 and she placed an ad in the paper.
Yeah, very minimal to put an ad in the paper, rent out a local hotel for 2 days, charge people $250. Hey, I'm 14 here. I'm like, if 10 people come, if 50 people come, 250, I could have the lunch catered or have a break, have people go out for lunch and get on a stage and tell people about things they needed to know.
At the age of 14.
That I already knew.
So how many people showed up?
Well, that's a great question. So I have it master planned out, and then I reflected and pondered, who is going to listen to a 14-year-old girl who wasn't of the world, who didn't travel the world yet? So imposter syndrome came. I never took action. It was all an idea. And I didn't realize it until just a couple years ago. That's what it was. I stopped myself from being great. I stopped myself from myself. So now, when I dismantled the imposter syndrome just a few years ago, I check in with myself. When did I want to do this? 5 years ago? It's been going in my head 5 years ago? When did I want to do this? 6 months ago, and it's still not done, but it's just ruminating in my head. And I thought it was already out, because in my mind, their mind doesn't know the difference. Once you say it, the mind doesn't know the difference if you've done it or not. So an example was, we'll stay on the 14-year-old one, never did it. And now, it's what I do, which is great. But I put myself on a race to travel the world first, and I did. To be curious, to talk to people, to get to know the world, food, culture, just listening. So then I can be a very valuable asset when I started, that's why I started my podcast when I was 12, right? I had this ancient wisdom, and I wanted to pay it forward. So I wanted to start my podcast 9 years ago, and I didn't know how to get on the train tracks until 2019 when I was in a stand-up comedy class, and this woman showed me how to start it, and I hit the ground running, started the podcast, and the whole intention is, it's not right or wrong. It's just, these are my experiences over 2 decades of being in entertainment. But when I started the podcast, I just wanted to pay it forward and say, hey, if this took me 10 years and it can take you 10 days or 10 minutes, awesome. But just to share, my experience with the listeners. And so that's the intention of the podcast. And inspiring others and being a motivational person for others, So that's and I only told that story 2 other times, but that's how I knew about the first realization of imposter syndrome and how to hack it now.
So with the podcast and everything that you're doing on social media, how do you manage other people in your family, your friend circle? Do you ever have this feeling or run into people thinking that, oh, Katie, you're too much, or you're trying too many things, or like you think that you're better than this person or that person? Like, do you ever encounter that? Because I feel like creative people who are trying to push the boundaries and do things different, you're gonna have to go up against other people who are doing things like the normal way, and you're always going to appear like the crazy one. Do you ever run into that, and how do you handle it?
Oh, everything you said, yes. And when I was like younger, in Michigan before coming here, people would call me crazy with a K. And then it even came here. When I first came here, people even growing up in Michigan, crazy with the K. But even here, some people call me crazy with the K. But they would say the good kind of crazy. That's what people would say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what people would say. And I would flaunt it, actually. I remember, I'm like, yeah, I'm crazy with the K. Like, I'm like flaunting it. I'm like, yeah, cool. So it's like not taking it personal, but celebrating it. If you think that's it, cool. Great, thanks for letting me know. Now it's like if someone wants to say anything, I'm like, oh, cool, great, thanks. When people tell you something, they're giving me a gem. I'm like, thank you. It's more ammunition and fuel for me. Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. So what do you think is going to happen with all of this NFTs and movies and music and all of that? Where do you see that going in the next few years?
Oh, I mean, it's rapidly growing and the ecosystem is very strong, the heart of it. So I'm really excited about the new world and, giving people what they really want, that people are confused and they're not understanding because some have never experienced the greatness of the world and the good intentions, but the people who are, building the ecosystem, you know, it has a huge heart. So I think it's going to be great for everyone in the near future, and the people who are the innovators who are taking a chance to curate and make this happen. It's for the people. It's for a kinder, better world for all. So I think it's really beautiful, and it's really nice to be a part of it.
That's great. So I know, Katie, you're going actively on auditions. You're trying to get back on TV and film and all that. What is it about acting that makes you go back to it? Like, you're so talented. You could be running different companies. You could be running agencies. You could be doing events. You could be a public speaker. You have music. You have everything. But it's almost like you keep going back to acting. What is it with acting that like grabs you so strongly?
It calls to me. I think it's one of my greatest loves. I have a new book, my third book. It's called The Actor, ... My Greatest Love Thus Far. And I think it's taught me the most lessons about myself, my life. And it's a way for me to share with millions of people and leave a legacy of true emotions and true feeling by being a vessel to grow through those experiences. So it calls to me, you know.
That's great. So do you have any tips for people who are trying to do different things in the entertainment business? How do you manage your time, your energy? How do you follow up with all of these projects? How to keep track of things? Like, let's talk about a little bit of the nitty gritty, because I think there's a lot of podcasts that talk about inspiration and go and create your art and all this. And then once you hit the ground running, you realize, oh, this needs a lot of structure, and like, tell me a little bit about that.
Doing things the way it's already been done is not going to work. I cannot do what Madonna did. Madonna was in a different era than me. I can't do what Oprah did. She's in a different time than me. Billie Holiday, same thing. In the evolution of now, I would share with artists, musicians, stand-up comedians, every art form you can think possible as a creator, to do your own research, but hashtag film 3, hashtag get in, check out Decentralized Pictures. It's the very first film fund in Web3. It's Francis Ford Coppola's company. And instead of doing things in Hollywood the way you think you need to do them, still there's a system which I very much respect and I'm grateful for. And it's been a learning lesson, and that's great. And that's great to know that system. In addition, know there's another system being built for the very reasons why a lot of artists are unfulfilled, because they feel like they have to step up ladders and there's gatekeeping, and because of how it's fixed. And Pharrell spoke at VCon on Gary Vee's stage, and Gary and Pharrell, it was a prolific chat, and Pharrell said, the system, you know, the government, the system, it's not broken. He says it's fixed. He says it needs to be broken, you know, so it can heal and rebuild again. So I feel in a way of Hollywood with actors and entertainers, there's some things internally that are fixed and certain things that are unjust, right? And so I think Web3 is an opportunity to change those dynamics in the way we experience people and collaborate and have opportunities. I think it's really cool when I'm on Twitter and I see these huge writers and directors from Web 2 who are working, and then they see me and they see me in the space, and it's like, I'm an innovator, I'm like ahead of the game because I'm meeting them on like the back end, but in a new way. So it's like they could still have me be in Web 2 projects now that they know about me, but in Web 3, but they probably would have never known about me in Web 2 because of how things are. So changing the psychology and the way we do things, our patterns, I think that's really important. The other thing I say, you know, IMDb is a great tool for all talent. I've always been doing IMDb, iMovie database, since I came. When you get digital business cards now, back then I was getting 50 business cards a night, and I would just go and see if they are who they are. Yeah. And then if they did do work, is it the kind of work I want to align to? And so, you know, like probably 45 of those cards just went to the trash that night. So knowing your intention and what kind of seeds you want to plant, sowing seeds in a garden, and then which ones were nourishing.
That's great. So what are some of the craziest stories that you have from working in film and TV, like production stuff, crazy projects that you had to do?
One that comes to my mind that was kind of nutty and crazy, but if it's not too crazy, we can talk about another one. But I was hired through my agency for 2 commercials. One was for Cindy Crawford. It was her Meaningful Beauty line. I was the model for it. And it was the same ad agency that also did Proactive. Mm-hmm. And so I was on, they flew me to Chicago, and the people there were great. And it was a massive studio, huge studio, massive. And so one side was all Proactive, and the other side was Meaningful Beauty. So they had me there for 3 or 4 days. And it was a great experience. I was flown to Chicago, beautiful hotel. You know, I love room service. And I would go to work, and I worked on 2 different campaigns in the same studio.
At the same time? Like you would go shoot for this and then jump over the other side? Or was it different days? How did that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think one day was just here. I did that, and then they had me on the other side with the Meaningful Beauty over there. I think it was there, and then the next one. So, but it was just pretty nutso. It's pretty crazy, right? It's kind of cool. It's like a double whammy in one. That was kind of like fun.
Right. So how do you like the voice acting side of things? Because that's like a whole entire world with animation and all that. Tell me a little bit about how did you get into that, and what has been your experience so far?
What happened in 2020, the Great Reset, it went from 5 days a week to 7 days a week. It was very busy. I mean, I was just like so busy doing voiceovers. I had over 100 auditions a week, recording voiceovers from home. And, you know, the podcasts and the voiceovers, and, you know, brands can hear my voice. So I'm doing voiceover auditions. It's, we want a Demi Moore type, Emma Stone, or Scarlett Johansson, like those from her, like those are the.
And can you like modulate your voice to do different voices? Mm-hmm. You gotta show me now.
Sure.
Okay, so give me like a couple different voices.
Well, I can just like speak maybe slower in a lower tone if I'm doing maybe some kind of narration or something, or if I'm doing like maybe a Nickelodeon, or I'm like doing a promo, and hey, watch this show, do this. So it's like the tone and the vibe, and watch this show, and it's gonna be on at 7, blah 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 on Nick, right?
What about an animated character?
Oh, an animated character is like, oh, come on, you know I don't want to do that. Don't make me. Oh my goodness gracious. Did you just see what that banana did? Whoa, that's the coolest banana ever. I love bananas. They're so tasty, and they're bright yellow. And guess what? Bright yellow is my favorite color in the world.
That is incredible.
So that's one of my characters.
That's one of your characters? What's the name of that character?
It's just like this, like, I should have a name. I should have bring me all your candy now. It's like this little baby brat character. It's like, get what you want. It's like kind of like that play bratty kid inside of me. It's like most fun.
That's hilarious. So tell me about all of these crazy NFT projects. Which one is your favorite?
Mine or others?
From the whole thing, whatever you want to talk.
I mean, I love Oni Force. I mean,
you love Oni Force? Def.
Yeah, I think they're really cool. Yeah.
Shout out to Henry from Oni Force. I'm gonna have to send him this clip. He's gonna be so happy.
Yeah. And JR and Strawberry. What the fuck? Yeah, those are my favorite.
Why do you like Oni Force so much?
I just love the symmetry, the vibe, the aesthetics. I love how everything's profile.
If you were buying actual pieces of art and bringing them to your house and hanging them, you would stop.
That's it. It would accumulate. It just takes up so much space. That's the cool thing about digital assets, because you can flex your wallet like right now. Like, you know, Gary Vee says in 5 years, like when you look at someone's CV now to look at their resume for a job, he says in 5 years, people will definitely just be like, let me see your wallet. And just by viscerally seeing like I'm gonna know who you are by what you collect. Like, are you into mental health? Are we aligned with the same like vibe, the same people, the same community? Are we gonna work together on an intentional level based on your collection?
That's crazy.
I think it's so cool because then it saves so much time and energy of like talk when you can just viscerally like accumulate so much so quick.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I am very excited about that. At the same time, like when I look at all the things that I have on my wallet, there's some of it that I just bought it like on impulse, or like my friend said, oh, this project looks really good, get it.
Ow.
There are some other projects that I really definitely wanted to get it because they speak to what I stand for and all of that. But it's tricky. I'm still not 100% sure that it will go mainstream, like that example that Gary Vee is explaining. I think it will maybe have different variations of that until we find some kind of middle ground where you can actually show your pieces without being so clunky with the tech and all that. So, well,
the people who I'm talking about in regards to that will be the people we're creating with and working with, entrepreneurs, artists, things of that nature, probably. You know, not for the ones who are the spectators and who are off the fence, who are going to just be a part of the herd and just be a part of the ecosystem. And that's fine too. Not everyone in the world are alphas and tech innovators and like investors and artists. So that's totally fine. I'm kind of more saying probably, on the pulse of 5 years will probably be like people like us, you know?
Creating something.
The creators, yeah.
So with the new events that you're working on, what are some of the artists and the people that are coming together to those events that you're excited about? Oh,
this is a great question because so Nama, she brings healthcare to Web3, and she is on the Council for Rug Radio, and she actually teaches meditation through Deepak Chopra's foundation. And so when they brought me on to be the creative producer to curate experiences for Future Shape 360, it's music and art, more interactive, not panel all day. It's going to be 2 to 3 hours of panels with innovators and forethought leaders, but it's going to be music and art and just like mingling and like partying and having a good time. It's a different psychological vibe. But when I had the call with the founders, I said, let's have, when they said they could have, 5 more women speakers, I thought, let's have Nama come. And so now she's going to be 2 out of the 4 days leading meditation that people can come to. And she'll talk and say what she does through her heart center on the meditation 2 out of the 4 days at the pool at the Four Seasons. So, I mean, how lovely is that? How beautiful is that? So it's music, art with meditation, mental health, like a lifestyle, because that's what the vibe is. And the founders were just so keen on it, and one had an interest in that too. Like, oh, I had that idea and I was able to bring it to fruition. So I'm really honored and proud to curate and make that happen.
Thank you so much, Katie, for coming on the show. I really appreciate your time. And you guys, thank you so much for watching this episode. If you liked it, send it to a friend, and we'll see you on the next one.